just such a heartbreaking video. Amanda Todd posted that on YouTube. It details her struggle with depression and, of course, her struggle with bullying just weeks before she took her own life. That 15-year-old's suicide has galvanized the discussion about how to stop bullying, a discussion, unfortunately, we've had before. Think about Jamie Hedy. Today, MPs debated a private member's motion to develop a national bullying prevention strategy, but there's a lot of debate about it. Can a study and a strategy really prevent bullying? Should the federal government be playing a bigger role in preventing this kind of abuse? Joining me now, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety, Candice Bergen, is here. So is the NDP MP, Dany Morin. He's the MP behind this motion. And the Liberal health critic, Hedy is here. All of you, good to see you. And I know no matter what side of the political equation you're on, your hearts and your thoughts and your prayers go out to the families who are dealing with kids who have been bullied, who, of course, have gone to that horrible length committing suicide. We just saw that video. Dany Morin, what kind of role, though, do you think the federal government can play in preventing a complex problem like bullying?
Well, I do hope that the federal government can show leadership to coordinate the various efforts that have been put forward by the different provinces, good initiatives, and also the school boards are doing tremendous work on this issue. But when we talk about federal jurisdiction, cyberbullying falls under federal jurisdiction through the telecommunications regulations. So I think that this is one of the perfect ways for the federal government to show leadership on this issue. And hopefully by adopting my motion, which would create a non-partisan committee in the House where there would be members from the Conservative, Liberals and Neo-Democrats, where for once we could put partisanship aside and work together for the goods of the children of Canada.
And just before I will get a response from both the Conservatives and the Liberals. What exactly would this committee do? You talk about coordinating the various strategies and studying, but there is a sense of what action needs to happen. What action could the feds take?
Well, in my motion, I provided a framework that the special committee in the House would develop. The first priority is to look at the prevalence and the impact of the various types of bullying in Canada. Then look worldwide at the best practices to see which ones we can implement in Canada. Then disseminate the information to Canadian families because they have this huge problem on their laps. Their parents might fear that their children is being bullied, or maybe they know they are and they don't know what to do with it. And also to support the local organizations who are already doing good work on this issue. And finally, the key word here is to put the emphasis on prevention rather than criminalization.
Let me ask Candice Bergen, will the government support this? The feds taking this kind of step to prevent bullying?
Well, I think we've all been very clear, and as Mr. Morin said, and as you said at the top, Evan, we really have come together unified in our commitment to stop bullying, obviously as legislators, but even, I believe, as individuals, as parents, as educators, as community leaders. I listened with interest to Mr. Morin's speech, and I thought it was very well done. What we want to do, we have two committees that are currently looking at the issue of bullying, two parliamentary committees, one in the Senate, one here in the House of Commons. We think it's important that we hear from them, that we don't duplicate what they're doing, that we hear their recommendations, and then out of that see what other things the federal government can do, and what we can do together in a nonpartisan way.
But
so we're looking, and we did talk about this briefly, that we'd like to see Mr. Morin's suggestions on how the committee that he's suggesting would work together with the recommendations and the outcomes of the two current committees.
But when you listen to someone like the Hedy family, Ottawa teen Jamie Hedy, of course, committed suicide a year ago because of bullying. He was openly gay. Listen to what his dad, Alan Hedy, told CBC News last night.
I don't think we need more information. What we need, and we can't wait a year for action. What we need is action now. We need, if there's money available, we should find a way to get that into the frontline troops.
Candice Bergen, he's basically saying enough committees, enough study.
Yeah.
We need coordinated action. So, one, will the government support this motion, or will it come forward with money to support anti-bullying groups?
Well, we actually have, early September, we announced under our National Crime Prevention Strategy $10 million to go towards programs that address three things, certainly anti-crime and specifically youth at risk. But the third priority are programs that deal specifically with bullying and bullying at schools. And the deadline for those applications is October 25th of this year, which is coming up very soon. We really encourage groups, organizations, schools, again, very local grassroots people to put in their applications and let us know what they want to do to help stop bullying. We have $10 million available because we agree, again, we all agree, we agree with Mr. Humbly, we need to act. And again, as legislators, but as individuals, we have to do something.
All right, Hedy Fry, you have a private member's bill that you put forward on cyberbullying. It's still waiting to be heard by the Justice Committee. Tell us what it is, and if you want to see kids go to jail for online bullying.
Well, actually, my bill doesn't criminalize children, which is what I think people say the bill does. It doesn't. What it does is it looks at the existing provisions in the criminal code, which deals with criminal harassment, which deals with libel and false messaging and uttering threats. And the thing is, what we're saying is that right now that applies to every medium, including telephones, letters, anything that you can do once you've gotten into that criminal area. And it will just say we need to be able to apply it to electronic medium as well. That's what my bill says. It doesn't create new existing criminalization. It just says apply it to all medium, all forms of medium, and computers being one of them. And what we're talking about here is a fine line, or the line that you step across from just calling people names and pushing people and doing that kind of thing, or saying things about people, where you get into criminal areas that are clearly defined, like criminal harassment. And we do know that the RCMP are investigating Amanda Todd's suicide, mainly because this had crossed that fine line. Now, kids need to learn that not just kids, by the way, bullying is not just a childhood thing. I think we need to recognize that this goes on in the workplace, and that with cyberbullying, it follows you throughout your life. You never get away from it. It's going to be there on Google after you die, no matter what you do.
But do you need more? Do you need more? You talk about the RCMP. They already have something to deal with bullying called deal.org, right? One of their websites for youth.
Exactly.
What more? I mean, Mr. Morin's idea is to coordinate all these strategies, not just to, and I'll get Candice Bergen and Mr. Morin back on this, not just to deal with all this separately, but a coordinated federal strategy. Would the Liberals support that?
Absolutely, we will. But we talk about a comprehensive strategy: public awareness and education, prevention, support systems, harm reduction, programs to teach in the schools, and the federal government has a real role to play in that. But we also need to look at consequences when it crosses over from bullying into criminal activity. And I think young people need to know that, and we need to add electronic bullying. So there needs to be consequences to what is being done. I mean, if you look at any public health, and this is a public health issue, if we had a number of people dying in the numbers that we see young people committing suicide and or reacting to cyberbullying, we would call a public health strategy, we'd call a public health emergency. And there are very clear public health lines that you do. And those are the public health lines. It's a coordinated response. And we need to do that, but the federal government has to step up to the bar.
Let me ask a response. Mr. Morin, what do you make of the Fed's response saying there's already programs in place, there's committees in place, and the local level, they'll deal with this? How would you respond to Candice Bergen on that?
The strategy is not working. Well, I'm glad there are current studies being concluded right now in the Senate. And I hope that we can bring the results and those recommendations into my special nonpartisan committee, where each party could make sure that the final draft of this national strategy on bullying prevention will be based on common ground and put partisanship aside for the good of the children. That's pretty much my answer.
But Candice Bergen, I mean, part of what he's saying is they need coordination on this, not groups applying for money, but there's lots of studies, strategies, and groups that need funding. Does it need a national coordination, for example, to elevate best practices in order to make sure that these are effectively dealt with?
A couple of things. First of all, I think, again, we want to wait and hear what comes out of these studies and move forward. You know, I think to say it's not working, it's such a serious problem. I don't think any one of us wants to reduce this problem to a it's working or it's not working. As long as there's one individual, one child who feels that their only option is suicide, which, by the way, I think that's something we need to talk about as well. Suicide is never an option. Suicide should never be an option. There should always be alternatives and ways that young people feel that they can go to someone, that they can get help. So, you know, I think, Evan, what we want to do, again, we want to hear from these reports. We want to hear the recommendations. We are all on the same page. There is no doubt we are all on the same page. Our government has put money towards it, and we want to see a change. We want to see kids feel safe. We want to know that they feel safe to go to school and they're not scared to go to school because of bullying.
Evan, I think Mr. Hibley said it. For every child and anyone who commits suicide or responds with anger and takes a gun and rushes into a classroom, we need to say that it isn't working. We need to move forward. Those kids can't wait anymore. The waiting is over. All the studies have been done. Let's get together, put a concrete plan of action, coordinated with provinces and schools and everyone. And the feds need to do that now.
The studies aren't over, and I think that we have 2 studies. I think it would be regressive and probably not very wise to not even listen or hear what the recommendations are, because we could very well move backwards. So they are going to be coming forward very quickly. We're committed to this. We're committed to we put funding towards it. I think that, you know, instead of criticizing, this really is an issue that we're working together, and rather than pointing fingers.
I got 10 seconds, Mr. Morin, as it's your motion. Go ahead, last word.
I think that if the federal government, the provincial governments, the school boards, the teachers, the parents, all work together on this, we can make a difference in the lives of the children, and we can save some lives.
All right, Candice Bergen, Dany, Morin, and Hedy, I appreciate your time on a very sensitive subject. Thanks so much.
Thank you.